All right. In a second, the red dot has appeared. And so all that remains for me to do is welcome you, Mr. Colin Tomlin, to today's highly anticipated, because I know we've had a couple of attempts to try and get this down, episode of Coffee with Kofi, which I know we talked about is really about leaders who've heeded the call to pivot and do something that is meaningful and purposeful for themselves, their families, their wider communities, and indeed the world, in the case of what you're doing. So thank you so much for saying yes, first of all, and joining me on Monday after what has been a hectic weekend, as I know.
Thank you so much, Kofi. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. It was easy to say yes. I looked at some of the caliber of the people that have been on your show, and more importantly, the depth of the conversation. And I thought, it's hard up to follow, but it would be daft to say no. So yeah, it was an easy yes.
No, thank you. My thing is curiosity in people and the uniqueness that we all bring as 1 in 8 billion, and in my case, your case, I know children of God. Like, there's something unique about all of us that needs to be told and should be told, because it may help other people, and that's the spirit of this. It's if Colin can do his thing, can I do my thing and go forward with renewed faith? So yeah, let's get into it. And I think if I may, I wanted to start with your career, because that really intrigues me when I was doing my research, for its unseeming switch from consulting to supporting your spiritual direction and that of wider community, to education, and of course publishing now as publisher and managing director of the amazing Pitch Black magazine. So can you, nice easy one, walk us through your rationale for the changes that you made to explore those different avenues?
It's probably disingenuous to say I had this grand plan as to how I would walk through all of the things I've done. I have this grand plan in my head in terms of how I want to serve people. And that it wasn't always there. It kind of evolved along the journey. So I remember at 11, I knew I wanted to be in business. I had this, at the time, my family, even though I was born here in the UK, we had moved back to Jamaica, which is my parents' home island. And I remember being in the back of a house then, and there was this, Jamaica has lots of space. So at the back of our house was what we called a woodland. Posh people would call it a forest, but we just knew it as a woodland. It was where loads of trees and rocks were. And I remember going there one day, precocious little 11-year-old boy, just exploring, enjoying time in his own head and in this environment. And I remember thinking, I saw this patch of very tall trees, and I just had this moment where I envisioned, and I don't even know if it was a vision in the sense of this is what I'd want for my life, or a spiritual vision. I don't know what it was, but I vividly remember looking onto those trees and then picturing a boardroom table in the middle of those trees, and me sitting at the head of that table and directing the show. And that really impressed upon me that I needed to have some influence and some impact in whatever it is that I wanted to do. And it felt like it would be within the world of business. The irony is nobody in my family were really business people, apart from, say, one uncle. But in terms of my immediate family, my dad was a pastor. Prior to that, he was a Savile Row tailor. Talk about pivot. And so he kind of, and back in the day, Savile Row was more of a skilled trade than a business enterprise. So there wasn't a proximity to business in that sense. My mother, she worked in the health service, and then after that, she kind of looked after us. So she became a homemaker, which she would probably say is her most important job. So there was no proximity to business in that sense. That impressed upon me that I needed to do a business degree, as you do. So finished high school, or went through high school, always had an affinity for things like economics and maths and physics, things that numbers were important. Ironically, I left my A levels with physics, mathematics, and economics, as weird as you can get.
Yeah, what a combination.
Then went into university. By that time, I'd come back to the UK because my dad was like, listen, you were born in the UK, you get your student grant. Back in the day, there was a student grant from the UK. Wow. Why am I paying for the University of the West Indies when there's already a provision there? So came back. By that time, I'd had some of my older siblings who had paved the way. So come back from Jamaica and set up their home and life here in the UK. So the transition wasn't very difficult. From a proximity to family point of view, there were some interesting experiences, and we'll probably come on to that afterwards. But just to stay on point, so did a business degree, BA in Business Studies at the University of Westminster. Out of that, started working for the Prudential, started as a business analyst, and then started doing project management work. And then a couple of years into that, I was made redundant. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. At that time, my mother also passed away. So this is around 2000. And I took some time out. Thankfully, Prudential were great. They gave me a 3-month garden leave, and they weren't bothered whether I was here or there. So I went to Jamaica to help Dad with Mom's funeral in every way possible. Spent about 2 months out there, and it was like, okay, maybe it's time to head back.
Right.
Because then, family had come out. Judy had come out for the funeral, and then when they came back, I stayed because I wanted to just support Dad. Because at the time I didn't have a job to come back to. When I did come back, I remember my former boss having, I went in to do the final thing. Okay, garden leave is over, saying my byes. He then obviously heard about, the bereavement. And I don't know whether he felt sorry for me or what, but he said, hey, we're starting work on this new project called Stakeholder Pensions. Right. It's in Reading. I don't know if you're interested, but I think you'd be great for it. And I thought, yeah, I have nothing better to do. So having been based in central London at this point, I started traveling from Ilford, where we live, to Reading daily. And it was a little bit mad.
So east to far west, really. Jeez.
But to be perfectly honest, after the bereavement, I was looking for something to kind of jump into. Yeah. Almost like a distraction, but also on a practical basis. I needed to, continue feeding my family. In fact, at the time, Judy was pregnant with our first daughter, so there was a little bit of pressure on.
Just a bit.
And funny enough, at the end of that first 4-week period where I did my invoice, because this was as a IT contractor now, not an employee, I realized that my first invoice value was 4 times what I used to earn as an employee. And I thought, yeah, I reckon I can do this. And funny enough, I'd also made a leap of faith in that I said to my dad, I'd like to pay the lion's share of, making sure Mum got a really good home going. He'd had policies and everything, but I just wanted to do that. And so I used my redundancy money into that. And within the first month, I'd made that back. So I thought, this is not a bad way to live. So I then started doing IT contract management, IT project management rather. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then it became a bit much because at this point now our daughter is born. I'm working in Norwich, see the dots there. And I used to leave home 5 o'clock on a Monday morning, head up the motorway to M11, A11 into Norwich, stay all week, and then head back on a Friday.
Oh my God. Wow.
And I remember Judy saying to me one time, she said, I know intellectually I'm married, but when I'm pushing that buggy round Tesco's with that child and, you know, the groceries, it doesn't actually feel like I'm married. So I thought, yeah, maybe I need to be at home a little bit more. And then at this time, I'm working for the Virgin One account, or contracting with the Virgin One account. We'd had a late night and an early start, and this was a Wednesday morning, I think, driving into the office, and I had a car accident literally right outside of the gate.
Oh my goodness.
This guy was coming down, and I was turning right into the gate, crossing his path. It was completely my fault. Now, I remember it well because he was driving a Peugeot 206, I think, and I was driving a Volvo S40 because, you know, once you get children, you have to get the tank.
You have to.
And I remember I was listening to Radio 4. It was minutes after 8. And I remember turning, and I felt like a little tap to the car. And I thought, oh, okay. But inside, the radio was on, it was going, the engine was running, nothing. And then I come outside, and I had to help my man out. You know, his airbag had gone, you know, his front of his car was completely crumpled.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember thinking in that moment, Volvos really do what they say they do. They protect people inside. But after that, I thought, yeah, maybe it's time to kind of wind this down and head back. And so I then pivoted into training. And online training wasn't so much a thing. So we used to kind of go and do training on site. And it was extensively personal development training. And then when the bottom fell out of that in terms of budgets drying up, I then pivoted into publishing because it was like, well, actually, here's a way of putting, they didn't call it content then, but that's the word we use now.
Yeah, indeed.
Content out, but actually it having some level of posterity and also it being very, very portable. So that's really my journey into publishing. And I did this, or we did this magazine called Experience Growth for a while. And then George Floyd happened.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And lots of people were having conversations, and I was party to some of those conversations. And I just thought, a lot of this is absolute nonsense. It's people telling us as Black people who we are and who we should be so that we can survive, you know, this weird world that we live in. And I just thought, nah, I'm not really having any more of these conversations. Tell you what I will do. I want to produce a pivot from Experience Growth to Pitch Black, where we're really all about spotlighting some of the great successes that we have in our community, particularly in the area of business. Because I remember growing up being told, I had one influential faith leader telling me, you know, you can't be a Christian and a businessman. It's an oxymoron. And I'm like,
all right.
Yeah, but when you guys need money, who do you go to? You go. So I heard that and I thought, nah, nonsense. And we actually had a really massive argument about it. Discussion about it, where I was telling him that's nonsense. And I remember thinking, I'm going to show you that you can do both. So that was one of the motivations. And so we wanted to do this thing called Pitch Black. It really was about highlighting some great people in our community, spotlighting some great products, and listening to some great tools and tips from who we call thought leaders now. So that really is my journey to now. So as I said, that was not planned. It just kind of evolved.
Yeah, what a journey. And so many things stick out for me in particular, you know, having that sort of vision, intuition, that you wanted to be someone that made an impact and that was influential at 11 in the clearing.
Yeah.
It really speaks to me around how, for me, and others may be different, that we have eminence and immanence, which is God within us and God outside of us, or call it the universe, Allah, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, some spirituality. And I think it speaks to me about the importance of listening to that inner voice that you have, because it will often guide your direction in your destiny if you choose to hear it. But sometimes, you know, the signal gets fuzzy, a bit like the old radios with the knobs, and you just need to tune in. So that's such a powerful story, and really rich in the context of, you know, where you are. So thank you for giving it the time, because some people might look at you and say, well, he woke up one day and he arrived at the place he arrived at. But actually, as always with these conversations, I find that the road is anything but straight. It's anything but straight.
No.
So thank you. And so go ahead.
It's also worth saying, you know, I think because we live so much based on what we see rather than what we sense, it's important to remember that we are not human beings with a spirit. We're actually spirit beings wrapped in human.
Oh, I like that.
Wrapped in a human wrapper.
I like that.
That sounds slightly muddled, but I hope you get the point of what I'm saying. And the point is, the essence of who we are is spirit.
No, I do get that. And I think when you meet your fellow tribes folk, it doesn't matter what the exoskeleton is. I suppose essentially you're feeling that spirit. That is where the connection comes from, you know, whether it be shared values or outlook on life or what have you. It's that connection there, which I love. And just building on what you've said, actually, on reflection, the different experiences professionally that you've had, what would you say those differences have showed you?
I think those differences have showed that wherever you go, there you are, in the sense that you have certain values, you have a vision, you have certain attributes, you have a certain way of seeing the world, and wherever you go, as disparate as those environments may be, it's the same you that shows up. So you bring the same perspective, you bring the same value system, you bring the same vision, you bring the same talents, abilities, giftings, and skills into that environment. So that's the thread that links all of those things. And irrespective of the environment that I've been in, I've realized try to do three things. One is to help people discover who they are in terms of a sense of identity. The second one is to define what they want to do with their lives in terms of a sense of intent, and also to deliver something in terms of impact. And I find that, for me, wherever I go, the thread. So when I look back on when I was doing training, or when I started out in publishing, or even one of the gigs that I'm doing now, which is working with the Church of England, it's those three things. I think on my LinkedIn page, I talk about helping people to feel good, think better, and be their absolute best. And that's what it is, really. Discovering who you really are in terms of your identity, defining what it is you want your life to be about in terms of intent, in terms of your true north and where you're headed. And then also, all of that is intellectual until the rubber hits the road and you deliver something that really delivers some kind of impact into people. For me, those are the three things that define my life: helping people to feel good, think better, and be their absolute best.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it so much because it chimes with me from a point of view. It is essentially under the pretext of what coaches are here to do. You know, we look to raise people's level of self-awareness and that will come to intentionality, but also the responsibility they take for making the changes in their lives that they can control. Because to your point, sometimes life will hit us with changes, you know, from a child that is on its way. I mean, I'm not saying that was unplanned, because I did science at school, but that changes the dynamic of your responsibilities and losing loved ones as you have. So for me, I love to just delve a little bit deeper in terms of where did that come from, because I saw it and it's something that I did really want to get into with you. Where did that come from within you? You've got, obviously you want to make an impact, you want to be of influence, but that sort of slogan, if you will, or that sort of mission statement for you, can you trace it back, the genesis of it, much like we're in the Bible?
I absolutely can. It came to me overnight, but that overnight was a good 15-20 years.
They're hilarious. You're funny.
And because I like to kind of connect the dots. And for me, life has to make sense. I have to have something that pulls it all together. And the first thing and the foundation of the pulled together thing, or the pulling together, is understanding that, you know, I'm a spiritual being. I'm a Christian. I'm a faith being. So having read the good book, or the Bible, I realized I didn't just happened to be here one day. I didn't just kind of appeared out of the ether. You know, my scriptures tell me I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And, you know, Jeremiah talks about, from before you were born, I knew you and I ordained you. And that was God talking to Jeremiah. And he says the same thing to all of us, in the sense that, you know, you have something that I placed you here on earth to do. So for me, it was really important to find that out. And I'll be honest with you, when I was growing up, I wasn't so interested in going to the church services and doing the churchy things. I was just interested in, how did this help me to get to that, in terms of having a really good understanding of why I've been placed here on planet Earth and what I'm here to do for people. Because, you know, ostensibly, when you serve, in fact, when you serve yourself, that's the epitome of selfishness. When you serve others, that's what life is about, because that's what gives the fulfillment. That's what creates the impact. Because, you know, if you look at all of the people who've really, really stood out and made an impact in the world, they did it via serving others rather than serving themselves.
It's so true. It's so true.
So,
no, I'd say it's so true what you say, and it can be overlooked in this current time that we live in, where individualism, protectionism, and all these other things are seemingly at the fore if you follow mainstream media. But for me, that has become a feature more recently, is the idea that giving is living. You know, like, to give is to feel alive and to feel vibrant in the service of others. And I didn't say it, I wish I did, but it was said that strive to be a person of value rather than a person of success. And that value, to me, is more about your value to others, not material value. So I knew this was going to be good. So there's so much to cover, and so much you've touched upon already. So let me just come back to you on Pitch Black magazine, because an excellent publication. I know that there is a pivot now to be more digital rather than sort of print, and using resources that don't necessarily need to be used. You did give us some flavor of that, but in terms of the value, to come back to that you see in the magazine, and I'm sure others would say, but I've got you here, so I'm going to ask you, where do you see the real value of the magazine for those that are fortunate to subscribe and to get it?
It's one word, and I realized that there's one word that really encapsulates who I believe I'm about, and it's about encouragement. Nobody has ever died due to an overdose of encouragement. And so I want to be the chief encouragement officer
Love this.
of Black executives and entrepreneurs here in the UK initially, and we're having some conversations about taking that outside these shores. But that's really what it is about. You know, I think one of the best ways to help people to feel good, to think better, and be their absolute best is to encourage them, is to encourage us to say, okay, George Floyd happened. That's undeniable. He was murdered because of the color of his skin. Let's not beat around the bush. However, we are of value irrespective of how others see us. What's really important is how we see ourselves. And so my job is to help us see ourselves as really impactful entrepreneurs and really impactful executives who, wherever we are, we can turn up with poise and tune out some of that noise that other people will inevitably have around who we are and why we're there. So the real foundation of Pitch Black Magazine is about encouragement. You know, we are, and in fact, let me say this before I say that. We are incredibly gifted people. We are incredibly resilient people. And when we show up in our authentic selves, we make massive impact. And so one of the great things about doing Pitch Black is we are never short of stories to share, because at the end of the day, all we're doing is sharing stories of people who have made an impact, of people who feel good about who they are, who are thinking better about how to approach the world, and who are being their absolute best in terms of being examples, and people who my daughter and son can look up to and say, yeah, I'd like to be like that when I grow up.
Oh, wow. Colin, I've never done this before, but bear with me. I need to find some way to do some celebration on the screen. Hold on. If I end the call, we'll come back. But yeah.
No worries.
I hope you can see the little.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Little trumpet. And I'm going to do some of this as well.
I'm tempted to join you, but I might cut us off.
Okay. So some love and some trumpets that are flying off there, because what you said is incredibly, as is your mission, impactful, but also insightful in the representation did still matters, you know, and
absolutely,
we are blessed to have examples of excellence in the world of music, in the world of sport, but in the world of business, I think until there is ownership such as yours of the narrative, it kind of can be a little bit of a situation where you've got unsung, unknown heroes doing things.
Absolutely.
And to the point that you made, I think it's that you and I are of a certain age, we still have many more years to go, God willing. But for the younger generations coming through, no matter what their background or socioeconomic status is, to be able to see a different perspective to the environment that you're in and have something to target is so powerful, because if you know why, how is irrelevant. You'll make better decisions. To your point, you'll think smarter. You'll not want to, and I'm choosing a negative connotation, but roll around with some people that are doing less than productive things. But if you don't see that, and you're not a talented footballer, and you can't sing or rap for whatever, Instagram and world of TikTok will have you think you need to get rich quick. If you can't see a way, then you look around you. What is the way that people do this? So it's I needed to press all those buttons I pressed earlier just to give you
one of the motivations as well. Sorry, one of the motivations as well, Kofi, is I don't think any young Black kid now wakes up and says, wow, it would be great if I was the first footballer playing for Arsenal.
No.
There are tons of those.
Yeah.
And what I'd like he or she to wake up and think is this: I'd love to be one of many FTSE 100 CEOs in the UK. because right now there's none. And so our job is to really put that out there, that this is a tangible, credible, achievable aspiration. Because, you know, as you said quite rightly, we're overrepresented in sport and to an extent in media, in front of the camera anyway. The real decisions are being made in those boardrooms.
You're so right. And, you know, for me, I really don't want to take anything away from the focus that you have, you know, on the Black story and the excellence within that, because that can happen enough on its own anyway. But when I hear this, it really excites me about where the world could possibly go when our true authenticity is in, and I replicate that across any demographic of person, because you and I are our best, coupled with our white brethren at their best, our Asian brethren at their best, you know, our wherever you are, and I'll bring in other protected characteristics as well, but anyone who is able to bring their best in an environment that is supportive of authenticity and collaboration, I can't sleep sometimes for imagining what that would actually look like, because the energy saved from, oh, but this is mine, and if I give this, then you'll, like, we lose that loss of energy. Absolutely. But then what we create with our unique gifts that we then combine is a pie that's so big that I think we will all need to go to Weight Watchers, because everyone is living from that. Everyone is creating opportunities that not only give them a sense of purpose and fulfillment, but actually, as I see it, creates connectivity with customers, because so many different voices are being heard and thought about in that process of creating whatever the product, whatever the service is that we currently have. And so,
I mean, I'm of the opinion proper collaboration is exponential. So with collaboration, 1 on 1 isn't equal to 2. If done right, 1 on 1 equals 11. Because that's the power of collaboration. When, you know, Kofi turns up in his authentic self, Colin turns up with his authentic self, and really just plug in what we've got and create something of magic. And so many instances of magic are missing in the workplace, in business, because people are more concerned about about keeping and taking, rather than giving and living, as you put it. I like that. And we don't give because we're always thinking, oh yeah, we don't always give, rather. We're always thinking about, I need to kind of protect my own. So I can't give too much of that, because if I give too much of that, I'll lose leverage, and they may then take that thing and do it somewhere else without me. So I got to protect a little bit. I'll give about 50, maybe 75%, but I'm not going to give the 100%, because I've got to keep a little bit back. And that's just so bizarre, because, you know, I think it was one of my pastors who said this about a pipe. A fully running pipe is never dry. And you know, reservoirs can dry up, because when you hold on to it, it evaporates sometimes within the reservoir context. But a proper flowing pipe is never dry. And it's about remembering your source, and the source flowing through you, and the source is endless. So you know, when you're giving ideas, when you're contributing, you never run out.
Colin, I've got a job for us. I want to ask you live on air when this comes out, if we could form a boy band, and I've got a name.
Okay, go for it.
I'd love us to be the Avengers of abundance and authenticity. How about it?
Ooh, I like it. Here's me thinking you're going to say Kofi and Colin.
But I love alliteration, so I've gone with the Avengers of abundance and authenticity, because
Avengers.
those two things.
I'm actually going to write that down. The Avengers. And I'm a Marvel fan as well, so that kind of goes right into it. Of abundance and authenticity. Okay.
Yeah. So let me write it up. Let me get my people to talk to your people.
Absolutely. I may need to get some people first, though.
Yeah, check with some people, and I'll do a quick sort of Google search to make sure no one else has coined the phrase as yet, because I really, really love what you're saying about that way to create more and the reservoir not drying up. And the source of all these things really is for me is love of ourselves, but also love of each other, as if we are, or we recognize what I believe we are, which is members of the same family. You know, the soul element that you talked about, the spiritual element. You know, if you look beyond what the surface shows, we are one family. Absolutely. And therefore, if we can look after each other and provide for each other and just lift each other when we're down, like, abundance and authenticity could be a thing. I think I could see this: t-shirts, mugs. I've gone. But let me come back to the room.
The real AA
and the AA, the triple A's. I knew this conversation would be free flowing and allow us to sort of do what we do and dance in the moment. So I just to gather my thoughts, because the merchandise is spinning in my head already. But when I really want to make this something that even more helps people, and a lot of what we've been talking about have been some of the sort of positive reactions to changes that have come your way. When it comes to some of the obstacles that you're proud to overcome in getting to where you are with Pitch Black magazine, perhaps specifically now, what are some of those that you've been really happy to overcome that you might share as inspiration for others to keep going, you know?
I think, to be honest, life without obstacles is a boring life. And also, you don't have any stories to tell. I woke up every day. Things just seem to happen. I put out this product, and a million people bought it. And so now here I am. It's kind of boring, isn't it?
True. Yeah.
Because what it does, it doesn't actually inspire me. It intimidates me, because I'm hearing it thinking, I don't know about you, but I got some problems and some challenges and some stuff that I've got to overcome. Now, when you tell me that kind of story, it intimidates me. However, when you tell me the real story, because nobody's story is that linear, everybody has problems, because that's just the human experience, then it inspires me, because it says, if you've done that with all of these problems, then I can also do it with all of my problems. And we've had challenges. However, I think 2023 was easily the most challenging year of our life, and I say our in terms of Judy and I and the kids, and also our wider family, because within the space of a month, we had lost not just my dad, who he was 94, and he didn't use this phrase, but he was good to go. He was like, I'm good to go. I've lived, I've enjoyed life, I am good to go. So we kind of expected it, and it wasn't a great surprise. However, 2 weeks later, we lost Judy's mom. That was unexpected. She had been ill, but she wasn't ill unto death. And what made it even worse was, at that time, we were visiting Judy's brother in Canada, who was undergoing stage 4 cancer. So let me just make it make sense. October the 11th, rather, we lost my dad. At that point, we're preparing to travel to Canada to see Judy's brother, who just asked for his family to come and see him. Mom, unfortunately, being ill, couldn't go, so she was left in the hospital with instructions on respite care until we came back. We're only gone for 2 weeks. While we're out there, the doctor or the hospital ran to say, hey, you need to come and see Mom now. We think she's going. And we're like, what do you mean? We told you we're in Toronto and we're there for 2 weeks seeing her son who's not well.
My goodness.
So we were like, nah, this is a prank. But of course it wasn't. And then they said, okay, we'll sort it out. And then they rang back saying, yeah, she really is going now. You need, if there's anybody you can call, you need to do it now. So that was just completely distressing for us. So I'm upstairs in one room planning Dad's funeral along with my siblings. Downstairs is Judy's brother on a bed, and at this point it will only take a miracle for him to get better. And in the midst of all of this, Mom goes. So there was a day we were just all looking at each other thinking, what the hell is going on?
My goodness.
So we then leave Toronto to come back to the UK to now start planning Mom's funeral, but also to travel to Jamaica to bury my dad. And we kind of thought, I kind of thought, this is heavy. So instead of going straight to Jamaica, let's go via Miami, or sorry, Orlando rather, and just spend one night rather than going to, I don't know what homes are like around death in Ghana, but in Jamaica it's a little bit mad, and I suspect it's a similar thing. So for some people it's just a celebration and a big cook up and a party, because they view death, Jamaicans view death in a very different light, especially people who die as Christians. Really, this morbid, horrible affair is just a celebration of life. But at the end of the day, for the family, it's a huge sense of loss.
Of course.
So we thought, okay, before we get into the madness of what that is, let's just take some time out, one night in Orlando. Now we're getting on the plane at Heathrow or Gatwick. To be honest, I can't remember. I think it might be Gatwick.
It's a blur.
So airport, because at this point we're kind of crisscrossing like it's crazy. So we're traveling now to to Orlando. We're about to board the plane, get a message from Judy's brother's son saying, hey, there's a bit of a fever on the brain and he needs to go in, just pray. So we get on that flight and we literally said probably about 2 words to each other on a 7.5-hour flight, because we're just in a daze now. This is a bit mad. We land in Orlando. I'm like, I don't want to turn on my phone because I don't know what I'm going to hear. And I also, at this point, want to protect Judy from whatever this thing is. So I kind of reluctantly, I settled Judy. We were waiting for the shuttle bus to come and pick us up. I settled Judy and said, I'm just going to go inside. And while I'm inside, you log into Wi-Fi and we get the message, Uncle, Dad's just passed away. So I'm like, I can't tell this. I can't say this to Judy now, because it's a closest brother. It's a family of 3, her and 2 brothers, and they're tight. And he's the elder brother. So I'm like, this is going to devastate her. So I'm out there now, and it's amazing you were talking about spiritual connections. I'm kind of talking about a whole lot of nothingness with her. And she's like, I know there's something you're not telling me. You might as well just tell me. I sense he's gone. So I'm like, well, there's no beating around that bush.
Right.
So I told her, and then we traveled to the hotel. We check in, and then I heard just this bawling from my wife, where this is the most helpless I've ever felt in my life, because there was nothing I could say, there was nothing I could do, there was nothing I could conjure up, for want of a better phrase, that could make her feel better and to make the situation better. So that was tough. And then so we went on to Jamaica. We spent 2 weeks there, burying Dad, then came back here to be making arrangements. Then we went to Canada again for the funeral. We were there for like 5 days, and then we came back, and Mum's funeral was on the 18th of December. And so we kind of came back home now, and the kids are like, what we doing for Christmas? Are we putting up the tree? And I'm like, tree? What tree? And I kid you not, I spent most of Christmas in my PJs and dressing gown. We didn't go anywhere. It was just like a daze. Literally, it was a daze. And so for the next few months, we were just kind of walking around in a stupor, trying to process. And I think we then, the following April, we decided Judy and I, just needed a break. And so we went to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and spent like 10 days there, I think. It was also important it wasn't Jamaica, because Jamaica would be too much of a reminder.
Yeah, of course.
Being around. So, you know, we kind of fell in love with another island and just kind of started to heal. We still have our moments. You know, a song or a memory or something will just remind us. But that's what I think is the hardest thing. How did we get through it? One day at a time, one step at a time, because trust me, in things like these, there is no quick fix. There is no button you can press. You can distract yourself. It's like if you don't like seeing a tree, you can turn your back to it and look elsewhere. But when you turn back around, as you inevitably do, the tree's still there. So it was about, okay, how do we heal from this? What do we need to do? And a huge part of it was just reminding ourselves of, you know, these are people who loved us, who sacrificed for us, who invested in us. So by doing the work that we have been placed here to do and what they believed in us for, that also honors their memory, and it makes it make sense. Yeah.
I mean, what a quarter, like October to December, what an absolute quarter. And I think this is, without doubt, you know, losing one of those people is losing anybody permanently is one of the hardest of human sufferings that we can endure. But back to back in such a way as that, with such significance to you, is incredible. And I can only obviously pass on my condolences and thoughts for the period that was. But
thank you, brother.
But just what comes to my mind is that you took from that a desire to live with even greater intentionality, to fulfill your purpose in honor of those that have gone. And what comes to my mind immediately is that there can be no testimonies without the tests.
Absolutely.
It's kind of in the word, isn't it? The testimonies, tests. So when we talk about navigating life challenges, typically on this conversation, it's like, run out of funding, or we didn't know if the marketing plan was going to work or whatever. But I think these, and I'm not to belittle or cheapen them at all, but But these things are usually surmountable in some way, shape, or form, because you it's a test of your character and your creativity. You figure it out and you move forward. But when you have a loss that is so permanent, I can only call that some sort of life quake / tsunami following on from that, which renders you, like you said, almost like a zombie, and to keep putting one foot in front of the other as your way of surviving it is a useful tip, because in its entirety, I think that would drown a lot of people. It's just overwhelming. That is just, I can't even, I don't.
I mean, it has the potential to, absolutely. But when it made us think about the preciousness and the fact and also of our own mortality. And the fact that, you can't keep putting stuff off, because one day you're going to draw your last breath and you don't know when that is. And I don't want to be sat on my deathbed or lying on my deathbed thinking, I wish I had, because inevitably it's too late. So I want to live all of my life when I'm alive, which sounds like a daft thing to say, but when I'm in good health, when I'm still above ground, I want to go out having exhausted every talent, skill, gifting, ability that has been placed inside of me. I think it was a guy called Dr. Miles Monroe that says the graveyard is the most valuable place on planet Earth, because people die having not exhausted all the talents, all value that has been placed in their lives. And I don't want to be one of those people. I want to die empty.
And I think you are definitely testament to that, and are doing that. And to your title of Chief Encouragement Officer, I think there can be no realer form of encouragement than to lean into the finite nature of what is this miracle that we call life, and share it with you, because every day I wake up and I can touch my toes, increasingly with some groaning, and I check my phone and there's no bad news of someone is sick in hospital and nobody's died. I smile to myself and I say, today is going to be a good day, because for as long as those two things are together, as in loved ones are there and my health gives me a degree of flexibility, then it's all upside from there, because it is up to us. It's up to us what we do for the day. So thank you so much for that. And we've reached a fantastic cruising altitude, and with a few more things to come. But mine, time is an illusion in this conversation, because it's literally just flying by with what we covered. But I'd love to turn to something that is really heartwarming for me. So since being connected to you and getting the opportunity to meet you at Inside Out with Rob Pierre and Rebecca and Greg and all those wonderful folks, I've been spying a little bit on your journey, specifically the love and affection that you have for your wife Judy, who you've mentioned a few times, but people may not put two and two together. When you say Judy, this is your wife, and it is truly heartwarming for me when I see what you write about her, and the way in our conversations you've spoken about her. And I put it as hashtag couple goals to aspire to. What is, and people might not expect this from a business or life derivative thing, but what is the secret sauce to this after how many years of knowing each other?
Funny enough, we've known each other for 34 years now.
Wow.
No, 35 years, because we had met each other 6 years before we got married. And yesterday, actually, I don't know when this is going out, but yesterday on the 29th of June, we celebrated our 29th anniversary. So we've been married for 29 years. And Judy is just easily the most giving, angelic person that there is. Now, she has to be to put up with me. Let's just say that. I am a nightmare. I can be a nightmare. And she's just the most giving person, the most loving person, the most selfless person. So I'll give you a story that illustrates her selflessness. For about 2 years, until recently, she was doing a contract in London that would involve her effectively leaving home at 5 on a Monday morning. Sounds familiar? Leaving home at 5 on a Monday morning, driving to London, staying there the week, and then coming back. It usually either on a Wednesday, a Thursday, or a Friday, because it was a 3-day contract that kept, ballooning into 5 days. And on a Sunday, her obsession was making sure there was enough shopping in the house for me and our adult daughter, who's 23. And I'm like, you don't need to do this. We can cook, we can shop, we can look after ourselves. But she was like, this is what gives me joy. I want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'd do it, because I'm thinking, you both are adults. You can sort yourselves out. I've got to make sure I'm set up for the week. So that just really underscores how selfless she is. And that's one example of a plethora of examples as to how she's just such a giving, selfless person. So with a person like that, it's easy to fall in love with her. She is just so giving. She's just so caring. She's incredibly focused in terms of her professional work, but in the middle of that, she finds time to make sure everybody is looked after, whether it be her dad, whether it be our kids, whether it be me. I like to think I'm independent, but that's because a lot of things already taken care of. A man who is supported and given a ladder likes to think he can stand tall, but without that ladder, he's not tall. Now, I've just made that up. I don't know if it makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, even if you got up on that ladder, if there wasn't someone standing beneath it holding it, you could quickly lose your balance. So it does, and I'm glad you said it. And I think it makes me smile to the point on my eyes are. There's some onions being chopped somewhere here. There's no one in my house, but it's such a beautiful expression. It wasn't what I expected, and I'm learning to lean into the unexpected in conversation more and more. But there's magic in that. There's real magic in
there is. And
giver plus giver. To your point, to collaboration, it's a force multiplier beyond belief, right? So, you sprinkle her, she sprinkles you, and what I witness, from the outside of my little interrogation of the internet is two individuals that deeply care for each other, are supportive of each other, and speak blessings into each other's lives. So what a testimony.
Let me also not be disingenuous. It isn't perfection.
No.
We have arguments and barneys like any other couple.
Sure.
And I think also we are just so completely different. Judy is somebody who is very empathic. Is that the right word?
Empathetic.
Empathic. She has lots of empathy.
We land on that.
So she will always lead with, okay, let me put myself in the other person's place. So she's able to make people's excuses. She's able to, usually mine, she's able to kind of get into other people's heads. She is a psychologist by training. So I guess part of that is by training, but also by personality. She feels, she senses, and she's able to kind of help people in ways they don't even know they need help. Me, on the other hand, I'm vision-led and purpose-driven. For me, it's about what's in front. So if a few things and people have to get, a little stepping on their toes for me to get to where I'm getting to, no worries, because that's what's important. So, and I think that's what makes us work. That's where we're headed. and she's very okay, but don't really lose people on the journey.
Yeah.
And I remember when we just got married and got into the groove of being together. For me, there was this thing about effort versus results. And for me, effort without results is a waste of effort. Whereas for her, the effort is a result in itself. And I remember I just couldn't understand that perspective. So leading teams, I wasn't always great at thanking people for the effort if it didn't lead to a result.
Got you.
And I learned that actually you're going to lose people with that, because if you don't celebrate them just turning up and putting in the effort, then you're not going to create an environment that's conducive to the result that everybody's looking for.
Oh, what a winning team! You two are. This is it's not just romantic and partnership led. It is lessons in leadership as well, which fascinate me and I love. And I'm mindful that we've probably got a few more minutes to go. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to look forward to playing this back, because in the moment I'm just hearing it, but I want to really reflect on some of these gems that you've been dropping on us today. So building on the lessons in leadership, you talked about celebrating. Some people may call it wins. The effort is the word that you use. But when you look at the lessons in leadership over the span of your career, generally, are there a couple of other tips that you would share that have helped you become the leader that you are now? Because again, for someone listening to it on their own journey of authenticity, trying to lead in the best possible way, they might hear something that you say and go, oh my God, that's something I'm dealing with, or that's something that I struggled with. Brilliant to hear your take on it. Any lessons of leadership that you would love to share with us?
I think the one that has really come into focus over the last few years, it's all about people. And I think it's Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why.
Yeah.
Incredible book. But I think we need to not just start with why, we also need to start with who. Because ultimately, when you are leading, when you are serving in a particular area, because at the end of the day, leadership is really serving. You are serving not yourself. You're not even necessarily serving a vision. You are serving people. And until we put those people into focus, we won't really be able to serve them well. Yeah. So if you are serving, you really need to be good at people, understanding people, motivating people, encouraging people, helping people to see a perspective which puts them in a better place, which is really what vision is, and a visual representation of a better place for people to be.
Fantastic.
And so your vision can't be self-serving, because that will alienate people, and people are very astute. People know when you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes, either explicitly or implicitly, in terms of something feeling off.
Feels off. Energy does not lie.
We've all met those leaders who said the right things. The diction is on point, the wording and the phrasing, it's supposed to move you, but it doesn't, because you're like, that something's off. And usually it's about lack of authenticity, it's about manipulation, it's about serving themselves, whatever it is. But one of the key lessons I've learned over the last few years is lead by understanding people, because frankly, you are serving people. And when people can't see themselves in your vision, that's when people say, yeah, good luck on your journey.
Yeah.
But I'm out, as they say on that, on whatever that show is. Dragons. That's it.
Yeah, it's like Dragon's Den, isn't it? But I love the sort of pivot towards a sort of people-centric leadership and engagement within that, because ultimately nowadays, maybe for the longest time, we spend so much time working and being in corporate structures or around a corporation, because let's face it, once you're more than one person, you're in a corporation of a form or a sort, right? But people really want to belong to something and believe in something and feel that their work at some level, whether it's deep or superficial, is impactful. So it's such a powerful thing to really lean into. And I definitely, I'm a subscriber of that channel, of your channel there. So one other thing that I think would be really helpful is when you speak through your experiences, I'm picking up so much knowledge along the way. What tools have you used to elevate your journey towards the leader that you are today? You know,
two things mainly. Is constantly learning, understanding that whenever we show up, we are a work in progress. We may be further down the road from when we started, but we're never there. Wherever there is, you know, we never get to the stage where we're like, yeah, I've learned everything I need to learn. I'm comfortable with being 100% Colin. Colin's a work in progress, and he's always learning from his experiences. So definitely reading biographies, reading personal development books, reading business development books. You know, books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Stephen Covey,
absolute classic. And I read that. I try to read that at least once every few years, where you're like, okay, because that's just an inexhaustible well. Because when you are at point A, the words, you know, be proactive, for example, which is one of the habits, means one thing. When you get to point B, it means something completely different. When you get to, so it's the same words, but now you've got an enhanced perspective. You've got lived experiences. You're a little bit more mature. You see in a completely different light. So absolutely reading and just, you know, endless learning. Continuous learning, I think that's the phrase they use, and also networking. But I don't mean networking in terms of just being around a group of people to see what you can get from those people. It's about seeing what a group of people can build, and really finding your tribe, and then building that vibe. You know, it's that whole thing of, yeah, when I'm around people who share values, we can learn so much. Collaboration becomes a lot easier. It becomes almost seamless because you see the world in a similar light, because the values that you share means that you have certain shared perspectives, mean to an extent some of your vision is shared. So you can go in the same direction, even if you're not going to the same place. So that for me, in fact, networking is probably the wrong word. It's more collaboration, understanding people, really supporting people, diving into the world of understanding people. I think certainly for me, those two things have been the gold.
And they are gold. And basically, Colin, I think we're the same person. Aerodynamic, yes, the same. And the view on life.
You may need to get some black polish, though, brother. You
know,
you have got grey hair in sight.
Morgan Freeman and all the other brothers that do it, it's distinguished. George Clooney, he makes it look good as well. So I may have to sprinkle mine so that I can be more learned appearing. But you know, it's so interesting what you said about networking and replacing that with collaboration, because I recently wrote something about the very same thing on LinkedIn, just in terms of using it as an opportunity to find your tribe. And when you talk about the power of collaboration, the synergies aren't lost on me. And I'm just like, they say, I want to be you, Colin. I literally want to be you. So
sounds like you already are, my brother.
Yeah, well, maybe I rephrase that as I believe I found in you a fellow tribesman on a very similar journey in life. So, because I think it would be disservice to my individuality and yours to say we need to be the same person. We could be different, but we can share vision and values and move things forward. So I like that.
Trust me, I know me. The world don't need another me. Trust me on that.
I'm going to ask you for the tips on
I'm not sure if my family could cope with that.
No, fair play. No, thank you, and that's hilarious. Now, I'm gutted that time is sort of running short, but there's one thing that I feel I really need to ask you about, and for me, some may not feel comfortable sharing their faith journey as you do, and I know we've communicated. Now, outside of this conversation, the topic of faith has come up and bonded us in several ways. But what do you say to anyone who may be wrestling with the intersection of faith and career? I've saved the easiest question to the end.
It might not be as easy as you think it is. I think some people are uncomfortable with the whole career and spirituality element, and they try to keep them as separate as possible. I remember, I can't remember his name, but it was Tony Blair's spin doctor, Alistair Campbell.
Yeah.
Sorry, communications director. I think that's the word they use.
Yes, that's who you meant. Sorry,
Alistair Campbell. Yeah. And I think he said something about we don't do God. I remember in one of the. I hope I'm not maligning him or misremembering. But I think we can't help but doing God. And I think for me, God for me is the source of it all. Now, if I wasn't brought up in a Christian home, if my dad wasn't a Pentecostal preacher and my mother and father weren't church planters, maybe I would have a different perspective. I don't know. But I'm really pleased I have this perspective where God is an integral part of my life. And, you know, our scriptures tell us it's in him we live and breathe and have our being. And so God is the source of everything for me. And so to leave God out of the equation would be, for me, the epitome of inauthenticity, because I'd be showing up with a version of myself that leaves out a huge part of who I really am and the source from where everything comes. So I can't help but do God, because God already did me, in the sense that he created me, he placed me here on earth. And so all I'm doing is living out the blueprint that's been set from before the very foundations of the earth. That is my belief. That's my understanding. I'm not a theologian, so I'm sure somebody might be able to pick holes in it.
Yeah.
But for me, it works. It gives me a greater sense of clarity. It gives me a greater sense of purpose. It gives me greater energy to show up. And it says, listen, you're not just here to perform. You're not just here to show up and look nice and look pretty. You're here to make a significant impact, because there is something bigger than you that's at play here. There's a higher power that's influencing you. So you're not just showing up in your own strength. You're showing up in divine strength. So if it's not the real thing, I don't know. I'm happy to err on this side of caution rather than just completely dismiss it because I don't fully understand it. And so that I say to people who struggle with combining faith with career and business and all the great stuff that we do as human beings.
What a beautiful dropping of the microphone, as Obama once did in that summary. And yeah, it's so powerful. And for me, it sort of speaks to authenticity, but also the fact that it's of course you were raised in the church and you were brought up in your faith, and similar to myself, and okay, I went off piste, came back, and
I think we all do, my brother. That's part of the course.
Part of the journey. But for me, it's really, if one should follow the 10 Commandments as a blueprint for life, I don't think we could go far wrong. And then at the same time, I think understanding that there are so many religions or spiritual teachings, it's for people to do what works for them. But I asked the question very specifically around someone who is wrestling with their own faith journey and the intersection with that with their career. So it's not to be perceived as positioning it as you must follow Colin and I on our band of agreement. It's each one do what they see as fit. But I love what you said about erring on your side of where things are outside, because it works for us. It works for us.
It does, and I think it's important to stress, and I think this is similar for you. We are spiritual rather than religious.
Yeah.
And I think the difference for me is, you know, even the Christian faith that I largely subscribe to has been known for some not very great things.
100%.
And I think it's important that religion is a man-made construct, usually around, you know, elements of control. And so I don't subscribe to religion in that sense. I'm not somebody who looks on all of Christianity and says it's perfect. I'd be the first to say there are some stuff that's happened in the name of God and in the name of Jesus that are just completely despicable and really don't do God any justice whatsoever. And that's because wherever human beings are involved, there is potential for corruption. And so some elements of our faith have absolutely been corrupted. But for me, the real thing is about a relationship with God rather than following some religious tenets, because the religious tenets are just perfunctory. The real relationship, it's empowering, because it's about, you know, because I'm a spirit being, I connect with God, who is a spirit first and foremost, and that's the relationship. And as I've gone on in my faith journey, I realized that's what's more important, not following a particular dogma, but actually connecting my spirit with the spirit of the living God. And so that's what really is, for me, what my faith is about, a relationship with God.
Wow, and more wow. Let's press this thing once more. Wait 1 second, Colin. Let me figure this out. We may have run out of time, but this and some of this as well, because when I thought that you couldn't layer the cake anymore, you really have to make that distinction between religion and spirituality, and I think provide words of encouragement. It's your job, Chief Encouragement Officer. You did say it. For me and many others that may well listen to it, and I think it's a real shame to conclude, but this is not over. I will be calling you for my personal enjoyment and
no worries
beyond this. But I think for the interest of sort of time for people to sort of listen and digest this, it probably seems a good juncture to call an end to our proceedings, which has been so enjoyable. It's brought more sunshine into my soul than the outside 28 degrees is providing right now on the external. And just, thank you for the authenticity, the vulnerability, and above all, the encouragement to, keep on going and finding that connection with one's purpose, whatever that may be.
And thank you for what you're doing, encouraging in your own way, you know, just sharing the lives of other people like myself, who are just out there trying to, in a crazy way, change the world. So, you know, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
In terms of coaching and just being Kofi. You know, authenticity for me is a big value. And so when I see someone who's authentic in who they are, I'm immediately attracted, because that's a huge value for me.
Thank you.
So it's good to see what you're doing, brother, and just to see you be you.
Thank you, and more thank yous. And one of these days on our next conversation, I'll share with you the vision that I had that has got me to this place.
I like it. I like it.
Like much like you in your 11-year-old self in that clearing, I had my own some time ago, and yeah, it like Netflix. I'll leave it on a cliffhanger for those watching this far. You'll have to tune in for another episode for that one. But this is it. But let's keep doing what we're doing, and my biggest of love to Judy, the family, the Pitch Black magazine family as well. And I hope there's an opportunity for us to see each other physically, but if not, check your phone in 2 minutes. I'll probably be calling you.
Absolutely.
Loved it.
We're brothers for life now, man.
That's it. AAA. Avengers, abundance, and authenticity. This is us.
There you go.
All right, sir. Well, have a brilliant rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Blessings, my brother.
You too. Take care.